And I appreciate, President, the opportunity to come and speak to the student body. I recognize that university presidents are very protective in who they have come and speak to you, so I regard this as a high and distinct honor. I'm so pleased to be with all of you. The last time I was here was 4 years ago. I didn't realize that, but it's been 4 years. I came to accompany the then Philadelphia Phillies World Series champion baseball manager, Charlie Manuel, who some of you may follow sports, know that he's from this town. And he came to speak here, and so I accompanied Charlie here and spent a good portion of a day following Charlie around, and we came with the camera crew to shoot Charlie coming back to his hometown and speaking here from this very podium. And most of you, I know, never saw that piece run, so we're going to cue it up. I asked my producers at the station to send it, and they did, and I wanted to show it to you.
Valley of Southern Virginia is the kind of place for which songs were written, movies made, and big league dreams born. And it doesn't look much different now than when Charles Fugua Manuel was a boy.
When I was a kid, like I tell everybody, like how special Buena Vista was to me, and and I enjoyed growing up. I can't imagine, growing up as a kid anywhere else.
In Buena Vista, Charlie Manuel is regarded as a mythic figure.
Hit that home run and right field to turn around 2 or 3 times, and that ball kept on going.
I guess I remember him hitting a baseball one time. Looked like it went to the second stoplight down here at Buena Vista. From the brick wall, I think it went to the second stoplight when it quit rolling.
It was on this field that Charlie Manuel became a legend in Buena Vista.
So this is the field where you played, Charlie?
Right, this is the field where I played.
Charlie's younger brother, Press, remembers his older brother's heroic feats.
He hit a home run down there that won the game over there. He hit that thing the length of the football field and into some trees. And my brother Bob and I, when we went and got the ball and picked it up, the ball was lopsided and the stitching was
busted on it?
It was busted.
Egg-shaped.
Yeah. Worst balls. You're going to get your shoes dirty.
Charlie got his Herculean strength from working in the sawmill as a boy, stacking lumber and rolling huge logs with a medieval-looking tool which he demonstrated for me.
They got machinery now that they buy when you hey, toughest job you can have.
Charlie's dream is to win another World Series and then return to this street corner water fountain where he and his buddies hung out.
You said you wanted to play 20 years in the majors, get your pension, and this is what you wanted to do?
I wanted to retire and come back and sit on the fountain. That's exactly that. That was my life ambition.
It may be hard for outsiders to see, but this small town prepared Charlie for life in the big city.
What was it about this little town that propelled you to do what you've done, Charlie?
I think some of the biggest things that first of all, I think is a very mentally tough. When I first went to Philadelphia, they used to say all the time, about Philly's a tough town, city, and it is. But at the same time, I grew up in a very tough town, and we used to scrap, we used to fight.
He did a great job. People proud of him in this town.
He's a good guy, though. Never did forget his roots. It was nice for him to come back, though, and didn't forget the town.
Philadelphia viewers got a chance to see a little bit of the Shenandoah Valley and a little bit of Buena Vista through that piece. I hope none of you did like Charlie did and fight and scrap, as he said. But I suspect, as it was for Charlie, Buena Vista, and specifically this university, your experiences here will prepare you, as it did Charlie Manuel, for life in big cities and maybe small towns like this in your future. I'm impressed with the reception that the two missionaries just received. In fact, it choked me up. And I want to share, I'd like to ask all of you who have served missions to stand. Now, I'd like my wife and Sister McNaughton to stand, and everybody stay standing and just turn around and see how impressive that sight is. You may be seated. All of you who are preparing to go on missions and have hopes and plans to serve a mission, would you please stand? Not quite as many, but an equally impressive number of you. You may be seated. As I contemplated what I would come and share with you this morning in the limited time that we have together, I considered all the ways that I was prepared for my life's work. And I submit to you that in my university studies, my career in the National Football League, 20 years and counting in television, a television job that has sent me to nearly every continent on this planet, covering the Olympics. I've covered 9 Olympic Games, winter and summer games. Nothing has even come close to preparing me for my life than my missionary experience. It has prepared me better to be a father and to be a husband. It has prepared me for my vocation in more ways than my broadcast journalism degree. It has prepared me for church service and for community service in ways that are incalculable. So, with the limited time that I have, let me share with you some experiences. And by the way, I may not get to all the experiences that I had brought with me. I work in television. I'm a visual person, so I brought slides. And we'll try to roll through them if I can figure out how to do this. Even though I work in a technology field, I am the most non-technical person. The station actually asked me if they could have somebody tweet for me, and I wouldn't let them do that because I wanted to be able to own the tweets that go out on my behalf. So, but I don't tweet that much. So still, a number of years ago, I was emceeing a program in Center City, Philadelphia. And before the program started, a fellow was standing next to me. There's typically at these things, there's a reception beforehand. And I'm holding a glass of 7-Up. The guy standing next to me came up and struck up a conversation. I played football in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, those of you who are from that area, there's a few of you here know that Philadelphia is very much an Eagles football town. It's also a Phillies town when the Phillies are winning. But whether the Eagles are winning or losing, it's predominantly a football city. So I had a football career there that endeared me, I think, somewhat to the community. And so this fellow started talking to me, and we started chatting back and forth. In the course of our conversation, I learned that he just moved to South Jersey, where I live, just over the Delaware River. started telling me a little bit about his life. We started visiting, and I said to him, you don't live very far. You just moved in not far from where I live. Would you be interested in coming to my home and having dinner with us, my family? Come and eat at your house? Yeah, you come and eat at our house. But here's the thing. I'd like you to come on a Sunday, because Sunday is the day that we reserve to have guests come to our home. But there's always other people there. Okay, sure. Who else is going to be there? Well, these two guys always come over, and they're not from our area. They'll be from someplace else, but they always come, and they always leave us a short message. They're missionaries. Oh, sure. We'll come. They came. And in the course of the dinner, I said, elders, it's time now for you to give your message. And they gave their message. At the conclusion of the message, I turned to him and I said, Phil, would you and your wife be interested in having these two young men come to your home and do something like this on a weekly basis? They do that. How much do they charge? They do it for free. I don't have to pay them to just come and give us a religious message. Well, I'll take care of it. So I had him feeling like I was, because, I put into the missionary fund, and technically, I'm taking care of the missionaries. So missionaries went over there, taught him the first discussion, and then the next 2 or 3, 4 discussions came to my home. I ended up baptizing Phil Orsi, who teaches computer science at a local community college in Philadelphia. And let me see if I can pull up a slide of Phil Orsi. This was taken a few weeks ago. Phil's divorced, but his son Giovanni is a deacon. Actually, he's a teacher now in my ward. And Phil serves every Thursday in the Bishop's Storehouse in our stake. And he serves in our ward. He served in all kinds of callings. He's been ward clerk and served in the elders' quorum. He's divorced, but he's raising his son in the church, and I suspect in 4 years that young man will be serving a mission someplace. A few months ago, my wife and I went to have lunch at our local Cracker Barrel. Is there a Cracker Barrel here? There is? Okay, about a half an hour from here. I think that's the place where we start. That's our favorite restaurant. So, good southern okra. Fried okra is my favorite thing there. We go eat at the local Cracker Barrel. We sat down. As we were eating, a couple came and were seated right next to us. This was a few months ago. As they sat down, I quickly realized that they probably knew who I was. I'm on local television in Philadelphia, so it's not unusual. But as we're eating and we're talking with the friends that we were at lunch with, I noticed the woman had reached down into her purse and pulled out her camera. I know what's coming. They're going to come and ask for a selfie or a photo. So I didn't say anything, but we ate. And then our check came. When our check came, the woman made her move. She motioned to her husband like this, and they both got up and came to our table, and they snapped this picture. Actually, I'm going to show you this picture first. Here's the next picture. I'll get to them in a second. 2 days before we had this lunch that I was telling you about, we had the sister missionaries who were serving in our ward come and visit us. And one of the sisters, the one to my left, is Sister Baliot, who just arrived from the Philippines the week before. And in the course of conversation, we learned that we asked Sister Baliot if she would come back. My wife grew up in Hawaii and knew a lot of Filipinos. My wife asked her if she knew how to make a couple of Filipino dishes, specifically pork adobo. Sister Baliot said, of course, every Filipino makes pork adobo. So we decided next Wednesday, exactly a week from tonight, sisters, come back and let's have Filipino night in the Sikahema home. My wife will make a couple of dishes that she knows. You come and make pork adobo, and we'll have Filipino night. But here's the catch: we will have somebody at Filipino night in a week for you to teach. Plan? Of course. We had a week. 2 days later, we have the lunch that I just mentioned. The couple came over, and they snapped this picture. And this is Ron and Angie Stewart. We snapped this picture with their camera. And at the conclusion of the picture, I turned to them and I said, "Where are you folks from?" Because they look Spanish. And Angie said, "I'm from the Philippines. My husband is Filipino, but he grew up in San Jose. We met at Clark Air Force Base outside of Manila when he was in the Air Force." I turned and looked at my wife, and she said, I said, "Ron and Angie, this has got to be your lucky day. We happen to be Mormons. And 2 days ago, our missionaries came to my home. One of them is a young lady named Sister Baliot, and she's from Manila. This coming Wednesday, we have Filipino night in our home. Do you make any Filipino dishes?" Angie said, "I make pork and chicken adobo." I said, "Angie, we already have Sister Baliot making pork adobo. Would you bring chicken adobo?" She said, "I make the best chicken adobo in the world." I said, "I'll be the judge of that next Wednesday." They came. We had the missionaries come and make the dishes in our home so that we can plan how we would approach having the Stewarts taught. And the plan was we would find out more about their family circumstances, and we would probably teach a lesson on eternal families. When they came, they brought their chicken adobo. Sister Baliot made her pork adobo. My wife made a dish called boot, which is a sweet rice. And we had the most fantastic dinner. Over dinner, I said to the missionaries beforehand, during dinner, follow my lead because I'm going to move the conversation towards their family. And as I did, I learned they had children who were young single adults. 2 of them were sons who lived in the area nearby. They were roommates, but they had their own apartment. And they had a daughter who lived in the Atlantic City area who was married. I could sense from our conversation how much they loved their children. So I winked at the sisters and said, "It's now time for us to do what we always do when the missionaries come. It's traditional that the missionaries teach a lesson. Would you be okay if you just sat in as they taught a lesson for us?" Of course. And they're going to teach a lesson about how our families can be eternal. Would that be okay? That would be fine. Would you be okay if the sister sang a song beforehand? Sure. The sisters sang, "Families can be together forever." And the Stewarts literally cried through the entire song. Our first lesson was taught that night, and we have continued. They came back. The process is ongoing. But here's the first night. Let me see if we can get... This is the first night that we taught the Stewarts. They came back subsequently with their sons, and then their son brought a girlfriend named Kristen. And we continue to teach the Stewarts in our home. This has been 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I'm on a plane from Philadelphia to Salt Lake City. I board the plane, and as I'm sitting in the terminal at the gate waiting to board, I glance over and I see what could be a 10, 11-year-old kid. This is him here with the dog, and the other picture is with his cousin. He's sitting with a BYU shirt, but he's sitting by himself, which catches my attention. He's got a BYU shirt on. We're flying to Salt Lake City, and he's by himself. When boarding happens, he's on the first boarding. What do they call that? Zone. He's on the first zone. I'm in like the 5th zone. First zone, and then I see a flight attendant come and take him, escort him on the plane, and I realize this kid's flying by himself. Okay, no big deal. By the time I get on the plane, I'm actually the 4th zone. I get on the plane, I walk to my seat in the back, and as I walk up to my seat, I look at my ticket, and I realize I see the kid. He's sitting in the window seat. of my row. I'm at the aisle, and he's in the window. I plop down, I put my bag up, I sit down, I said, "Hey, what's your name?" "My name's Scott." "Hi, Scott." "My name is Vi." "Hi, Vi." I said, "Are you a BYU fan?" "Well, my parents are. They went to school there." "Oh, cool. Why are you here?" "Well, I came to visit my aunt and uncle in Delaware, and I'm just flying home now." "That's awesome. Where do you live, Scott?" "Kaysville, Utah." Scott may as well had just had Mormon just printed right on his, tattooed right on his forehead right there. I said, "That is really cool." As we were sitting and we were talking, this tall, very strikingly beautiful African-American young woman comes walking up the aisle. She's got this huge bag, and she comes in, she says, "I've got the middle seat. Do you mind?" I jumped up and I said, "Let me help you with your bag, miss." I opened up. There was no room for her bag, so I took my bag out, stuffed hers in, and then put mine under my seat, and then closed it. And she said, "Thank you so much. I'm flying home for a wedding. I've got to stop over in Salt Lake for 45 minutes. I did not want to check my bag because all my stuff is in there." I said, "You don't have to explain. Perfectly fine. Glad I could help you." She sat in her seat. We are an hour and a half into a 4.5-hour flight to Salt Lake when suddenly I had dozed off. I woke up to see her light on, and she's reading a Bible. And so I waited another 5 minutes. She's still reading. She's in the New Testament. And I look over at her and I said, "Are you a Christian?" And she looked at me and she said, "I am." But she kept reading. But I knew that the hook had been set. Nobody is asked, if you're a Christian, if you're reading the Bible, first of all, you're a Christian, typically. And if somebody asks you if you're a Christian, you're reading the Bible, I know it's killing her to find out why I'm interested, right? 10 minutes later, she says, "Are you a Christian?" I said, I am. She said, "What denomination are you?" I said, "I'm a Latter-day Saint." She said, "You're a Mormon." I said, "I am. I'm impressed you know that." She said, "Well, I'm interesting because I didn't think Mormons were Christians." Right? "How often have you heard that?" I said, that's interesting. We are very much Christian. In fact, our church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I find out her name is Natalie. Natalie is a medical student, first-year medical student at Penn State. She did her undergrad at Stanford. While at Stanford, she met a boy. They were dating seriously, and he had graduated, but he was in Los Angeles studying to be in the ministry. She was on her way home to Sacramento for a wedding. As we spoke, she asked me, interestingly enough, about Latter-day Saints' views on women. And so we discussed that. She said, "What is your view and what is the church's view on Adam and Eve?" I said, "Interesting topic." I said, we differ with most Christianity in that we honor Adam and Eve, and we consider the fall to be a blessing. She said, "I've never heard that. The fall was a blessing?" I said, "We consider it a blessing, yes, because things had to happen as they did, and we consider it a blessing." As we discussed this, 10-year-old Scott was small enough, as you can see, he had turned himself and sat Indian style in his chair with the seatbelt still on, completely engaged in our conversation, because Scott didn't know that I was LDS. But Scott also recognized that there was a missionary experience happening right before his eyes. So I said to her, "Natalie, this is not..." She said, well, that's your view, really. That's not the church's view. I said, it is the church's view. It's our doctrine, and it is unique to our faith. She said, I can't believe that. I said, Natalie, this doctrine I've shared with you is not only true, it is fundamental to our faith, and our children know it. And I had the impression to turn to Scott, and I said, Scott, do you know an article of faith about Adam? And I closed my eyes and I prayed that Scott paid attention in every primary class. And as I looked at him, he looked at me with his eyes like saucers. And I said, the one about Adam. And Scott looked up and he looked back and he said, the one that goes, we believe that men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgression. He looked back at me, and Natalie looked at me, and I went, yes, yes, that one. Natalie said, you guys know each other. I said, no, we just met. We just met. She was dumbfounded. She couldn't believe. She said, does he know what that means? I said, Natalie, he may not understand it, but he knows the doctrine. It's been taught to him, and as he grows, he will understand what the doctrine is. She just couldn't believe it. As we talked, Scott chimed in and said, I also know 1, 3, 4, 6. I said, Scott, if we get there, I'll have you do it. By the time we landed in Salt Lake City, I jumped up and got her bag. I had gotten her card. I said, I would like to send you 2 of our missionaries with scripture and pamphlets that will explain that doctrine. She said, please do it, but wait until I get home from our wedding. I said, I'll wait. I called the mission president in the Harrisburg mission, and a week later, he dispatched his 2 assistants to Natalie's apartment with the Book of Mormon. Here's what happened. 3 weeks later, I got an email from Natalie. Natalie said, my boyfriend's coming to visit. I got to go to Philadelphia to pick him up. Can we meet and have dinner? Absolutely. My wife and I went on the appointed evening. We took them to a nice restaurant in Philly. The boyfriend came. When we met, I could tell that this was going to be different. He put the Book of Mormon on the table, slid it towards me, and said, we don't believe this. And I said, John, that doesn't matter, because it is true. And everything that you've learned, that you've been taught against it, doesn't matter a hill of beans, because it remains true, and it will be true so long as you and I shall live and further. We finished our dinner and we parted ways, and nothing's ever come of it. 10 years ago, I would have been embarrassed to tell you this story because it did not end in a baptism. But over the years, I've come to terms with the fact that our obligation is to what? Open our mouths and share the gospel. She and he have their agency to use and to exercise. But I feel better about the experience over the years because I shared the example with them. This is Scott about 5 years after the experience, he came back with his family to visit the aunt and uncle. We had them over for dinner, and Scott now at this time is taller than I am. This is 3 months ago. Scott sent me these pictures from his mission in Albania, where he's serving. These pictures were accompanied by an email that I'll read a portion of it to you, if I can pull it up here. It says, "Hi, Vi. My brother Stephen told me he saw you. We ran into the brother. He tells me, he updates me. He's an Eagle Scout, graduated from high school, traveled Europe a bit." Let's see, I want to get to the back end of his email, and I want to read you what really touched me. Let's see if we can get to that. Get to that next slide. There it is. I don't know if you can read the second paragraph. "One thing that I really want to thank you for is in reminding me how small the world is and how quickly friends are made. It's made a change in my life. Our meeting on the plane that day was probably one of the needed course corrections that God put in my path that has influenced me to become the person I am. Thank you for playing that part in my life. Thank you for being ready when God called on you. Lastly, a secret. The person that you were trying to convert on that plane so long ago, while speaking with that woman, you actually were converting me. God works in mysterious ways and is definitely capable of hitting two birds with one stone. Thanks for everything. Elder William Scott McGrath." And then I love this very millennial P.S. Keep on being awesome. That wasn't my intention when I had that experience. Scott was the last thing on my mind. Scott was there and shared the experience, and I was working on sharing the gospel with someone that I felt was gravitating toward it, and instead Scott got the full brunt of the missionary experience, and I hope he's sharing that with folks where he is now. Sometimes you have missionary experiences, all of you who serve missions, those of you who are about to go, just by performing service. My sons and I were throwing mulch, this was a few months ago, in our front yard. My wife ordered way too much of it, and so we finished mulching our yard. The house right behind us that you see there belongs to a young surgeon. He's Muslim. His name is Khalid El-Badawi. He and his wife Iman have 4 beautiful children. So they weren't home. We had all this mulch. I said, boys, we'll just go over and mulch their yard. If they've ordered some, they can cancel it, but let's go mulch their yard. We start mulching their yard, and Iman pulls up and says, "Oh my gosh, my husband's never home. He's always at the hospital. This is so awesome. What can we ever do for you?" I said, "Do you guys make Middle Eastern food?" She said, "Of course. I grew up in Egypt. My husband's in Malaysia." I said, "That's all. If you guys have some food, we'd like to come over and eat." She said, That's all?" I go, Yeah. She said, "Would you guys bring some Polynesian food?" I go, Yeah, we'll bring some rice. So we went over one night, and here are the Sikahemas and the El-Badawis who lived in the house right behind you that you see there. Now I'm wearing this dress, right? You've seen it's a beautiful, men wear it in the Middle East. I have a friend from Africa who gave me as a present these dresses. They're linen, right? You've seen men wear them. And I think it's kind of cool because Polynesian men wear skirts. So I thought it'd be nice to wear. And I told my wife, "Look, Iman always has a head covering. You and the girls, my sister, my daughter-in-law, and her sister came with my son and his little kids were there. I said, you girls, let's be very mindful and respectful because they're Muslim. You girls take headscarves, and why don't Trey and I wear the men dress, and we'll impress them." So we came over. If you can see, Cal is sitting there. He's wearing jean shorts. So when we knocked on the door, he looked at us and goes, "Oh, hey, come on in." We walked in, we sat down, we started having dinner, we were talking. I thought he was going to mention something about, trying to be fashionable. And he says, "So tell me what you're wearing." I said, "We wore these because I thought you big Muslim that you'd know what they were." He goes, "No, they look African." I go, "Well, actually they are. My friend is from Africa." He goes, "Yeah, those aren't Muslim." I go, "I'm sorry." And my wife had asked about the headscarf. His wife sitting behind him has a scarf, and she said, "No, that's just for us women who are Muslim. You guys don't have to wear it." So my wife was giving me the eyeball. "Well, you guys wearing dresses over here?" This is what happens when you do missionary work sometimes. You end up wearing a dress. We took a Book of Mormon and we presented it to them and told them about the Book of Mormon. They were so fascinated. And he gave us a Quran that he signed. We signed ours and they signed theirs. And it's one of the prized possessions we have in my home is that Quran. And we're having Thanksgiving, post-Thanksgiving meal together coming up. I know I'm running out of time. Real quick, last story. I had a teacher that I knew who was my home teaching companion when I was 14, and I lost track of him. And a few years ago, I tried to track him down. This is what he looked like. I found him finally. He was retired. I just wanted to go thank him for all that he did for me. My dad wasn't active in the church, and he took me home teaching when I was a kid. Marty Klein, I found him in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Is it Port St. Lucie or, yeah. So I flew there, took him to a baseball game. The Mets train there, so we went to a baseball game. This was last year. And then afterwards I said, "Why don't you and Mary Ellen, I'm going to take you to the best restaurant in the area." "Where is it?" "The Golden Corral, but let's go at 4 o'clock so we get the early person special." We went. I found out while we were there that he hadn't been in the church. He had left the church 20 years ago because he had gotten offended by someone and he hadn't been in church. What I didn't know about his history is that Marty grew up Jewish in Brooklyn, and his father was a rabbi. He converted to the church, he and his wife, and they'd been out of the church for 20 years. And while there, I begged Marty, I spent a year tracking you down, and it would please me so much. I know you haven't been to church and there have been issues. Would you just come to church with me while I'm here? So they came to church. And when I left, I said, "Marty, when I was 14, you saved my life. You literally saved my life. And now as you're older and I'm a little bit older, let me help you come back to the church. If any of you ever go to the Fort Pierce Ward in Port St. Lucie, Florida, Marty Klein is their high priest group leader, and he and his wife just got their temple recommends back." I share these things with you for just this reason. I've never been a mission president. I've never been a ward mission leader. Never served a stake mission. I've only served my mission 30 years ago. But the experience of being a missionary has never left me. And it should never leave you if you've served a mission. Our doctrine is unique and it is true. I bear witness to the truthfulness of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. To my dying breath, I will share it with whomever and whoever will listen. I pray that you will have the strength and the courage and the wisdom, but also have fun sharing the gospel as I did with my young friend on the plane. It is fun to share the gospel. Don't make it seem like work. It's never been missionary work. It's missionary fun. Share it because it's unique and our doctrine is special, and people will gravitate to it as they hear it and listen to it. The truthfulness of it will be ingrained. They'll feel it. and they'll hear it and they'll respond. I bear witness of these truths in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.